Communism. What a word. It's been around our nation for years and years and years, and most people don't really understand what communism is and why it's such a threat and why it's always used as a potential problem in the United States. But today, we want to help you understand communism from some folks who grew up in communism. Our guests today are Juan and Elena Garcia, who grew up in Cuba under the communistic regime. Can you tell us a little bit about how, first of all, how did you get out of Cuba? And then we'll go back and we'll talk about what it means to be under communism.
Great. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you for having us here.
Absolutely.
This is a topic that with us has been very important. To go to the question that you said, how did I get out there? When I was 11 years old, okay, my mom and my dad put me on a plane by myself. It was called the Peter Pan flights, okay? And we were shipped to Miami. We were flown to Miami. And from Miami, there was a hub to where all the Cuban children that came across to the United States were distributed all over the United States, okay? The Peter Pan flights began from 1960 to 1962, okay? And I came here in September 18th, 1961.
How were you selected to be on a Peter Pan flight?
I wasn't selected.
Okay.
My parents just basically decided that it was time to go. Now, why did they decide that? Because during that time, there was word, it wasn't really totally 100% confirmed, that all the children, young children, were going to be sent to either communist Russia or to a communist camp in Cuba to be indoctrinated. And then, as a father, I can imagine what my parents went through. I was 11 years old. So they did it anyways because they didn't want to take a chance that I would be turned into a communist child.
And your parents stayed and put you on a plane at 11.
Yes, they came in 5 years later.
Okay.
And basically, I came to Miami, and 2 weeks later, they sent me to Green Bay, Wisconsin. Talk about a culture shock.
That's a little change from Cuba to Green Bay, Wisconsin.
It is. And the thing was that nobody spoke Spanish in Green Bay. I didn't speak any English, you know. But it was quite an experience for a child. You know, obviously, you know, you wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
Because they never spoke to me about what they were going to do. I can
Your
understand.
parents never told you why they put you on this plane?
No, they told me just before, basically before I left, they said, okay, we're going to send you. Okay, no explanation. And I can, and to a point, I can understand that because you're a child, you're 11 years old, and if they say, hey, we're going to send you to America, what would children do?
Yeah.
I can understand that. They will go, hey, you know what? I'm going to go to America. So that's why they kept it, you know, zip from me. Okay, I understand that now. I didn't then, but I do now. Obviously, I'm a grown man, I think. And then from there, I just went up to Green Bay, and I went to a home for children. Okay, it was like where a lot of children didn't get along with the parents, and there were some orphans. It was, you know, quite institutional life. You know, institutional life where, you know, we got up every day at 6 in the morning, made our beds, we went to church, which, by the way, if I may go back, this was established through Pastor Walsh. He was a Monsignor Walsh, okay, that he was able to get it together and get all the children from Cuba on a student visa. See, I didn't know that. On a student visa to the U.S., it was actually a clandestine operation, unbeknownst to me, okay? And that was the beginning of my trek.
So at 11 years old, you end up in an institutional situation in Green Bay, Wisconsin. What happens after that?
Well, basically, they they started kind of trying to teach us their way, because I came from a totally different environment. I mean, when I was that age, I would just in the morning after school or Saturdays, I would go on my bike and I start playing with my friends out in the street. Totally different from here, because we were up early every single day. We had to come back, make our beds, and we had breakfast, and every single day we went to a Catholic mass.
Okay.
Okay, so God bless Father Walsh for that. Okay, because he did the Cuban people a great service, and there was over 14,000, almost 14,100 Cuban children that came from the age of about 8 to about 16 and 18. See, and we would just distribute it all over the United States.
So from Green Bay, Wisconsin, you said your parents didn't come till 5 years later.
Right.
So you spent your whole time in Wisconsin, or they moved you into foster families?
Yeah, I spent 2.5 years in the home for children. And after 2.5 years, they took me out to try out different families, okay? One of them being Brian Bingston, which was a head coach of the Green Bay Packers.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
Seriously.
Wow.
But the only reason I was not accepted because they needed the family life, mother, father, sister, brother, etc. And Brian Bingston, Phil Bingston, I'm sorry, he was all over the place, traveling with the Green Bay Packers.
Goodness. Okay. So your journey is a little bit different. You left at 4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, my journey is a different. I was a child. I was born in Cuba. To begin, my dad was Cuban. My mom, though, is from the Czech Republic.
Okay.
So my mom met my dad in the Czech Republic when he went over there with student to whatever, learn or whatever, and he met. Then my mom followed him to Cuba. I was born in Cuba, and I come from a little bit of a different background than my husband. The family was very, very poor. So in Cuba, basically, I was born in '63. So at that time already, the communism and the regime was under control of everything. So there are, in place, they had like rations. And when we're talking about rations, we're talking about extreme rationing. I don't remember because I was a baby, I was a child. But from the stories of my mom, my dad, the struggles they went to, my aunt, we were a family of 10 adults living in an apartment, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment, where for example, the meat that was given for the month, 1 steak per person per month.
Per month.
Per month.
Wow.
That meat, basically my entire family, those 10 adults, did not eat that month because they were saving it for me when I was around 2, 3, so I would get nourishment. My brother was born also in Cuba, and my mom spent most of her pregnancy, she tells me, with just Cuban coffee and maybe a little piece of bread or something that they can, So it was really, really tough, really tough. My dad always had the idea of coming to the United States. Since he was like 15 years old, he tried to stow away on a boat and they caught him. But anyway, that's a different thing. But he always had that idea. So when my brother was born, my brother was very sick with asthma. And that was in a way of getting us out. Why? Because my mom comes from the Czech Republic. They were also communist at that time. So they made arrangements, or the doctors that were treating my brother said he needs like a change of climate, like not a humid, tropical, but like a dry climate, which is, in the Czech Republic, in Europe. So we were able to get out of Cuba. And we lived in the Czech Republic for 5 years. My father always, when he left Cuba, had an arrangement with my aunt, his older sister, that the minute that she was able to get to this country, she would let us know. And then my dad started the trajectory of migrating and bringing us here. And that was, to me at that time, a fun vacation, but then later on I find out it was harrowing experiences because I was 9 years old. So we lived there, I lived for 5 years. Never, it was never the rationing that was in Cuba. Cuba was extreme. But here, we didn't have the freedom of, oh, you can go here, you can go there. Like for us to be able to leave the country, even to another communist country, it was like a process of almost 2-3 months, I was told by my parents. So one day, once my aunt got to the United States, she notified my dad. So we went on a so-called vacation to Yugoslavia, also communist at that time. And there, we were at a beach and just having fun, and my dad shows up with an inflatable raft. Wow. An inflatable raft that would fit probably the size of this couch here, and would fit us. And the following day, he and my mom already made the arrangements, but we got on that raft, and we started rowing and seeing the different, like the water, and we were like, oh, this is so much fun, my brother and I. We ended up in the channel. We ended up on the other side of that channel, and that was Italy.
Wow.
And we landed with the raft, and we sought political asylum.
Wow, it's an actual escape.
An actual escape. And it was so funny because my mom kept telling me, oh, you love those little Dobermans that were on the patrol ships that were patrolling the coast there. And I'm like, yeah, but why? He goes, if they would have caught us, we would have been in big trouble.
Wow.
So that was that. We spent about 9 months in Italy in a refugee camp
Wow.
where we had to share a bathroom with the whole floor. That was my brother and I as children, it was just a different thing. My parents were struggling to try to make sure that we were healthy and that we didn't get sick or whatever. My mom has had a German father. My grandfather, German. My grandmother on her side, Czech. So my grandfather had his brother in Germany. And we were able to, thank God, be able to, for him to claim us in a way, and we were able to go and be transferred to Germany. So in Germany, through, again, a Catholic organization, in Germany, we lived there for about a year until they gave us the opening to come to this country. So I got here when I was 10 years old. And it's been a blessing. And I see now as an adult, as a mom, I see the sacrifices that both my parents made. Because my dad left Cuba with us saying, I may make it, I may not, but I'm going to try to get my family out. And then my mom, when she left the Czech Republic, she left in a way knowing that she may never see any one of her family again.
Right.
So,
Wow. Now, Juan, you told us a little bit about what happened to your father and his business under Cuban communism.
Right. Well, for about 30 years, my father worked really hard, okay, to lift up a number of businesses. So basically, what we had was 2 drugstores, and we had like a Woolworth, okay, which it was clothing, luncheonette, and all different, kind of stuff that people could buy. Okay, he also owned a farm. See, I knew about that, but I didn't know to the extent, like I just said before, I didn't know to the extent what kind of money my father had. Okay, I just found out about, maybe 2 months ago. And I was not there during that time. When I was there in Cuba, there were already shortages, especially the cereal that I love, which was Cocoa Puffs. I asked my dad.
Cocoa Puffs. Okay.
Dad, where's it? I says, son, they're not bringing it in. And little by little, we saw the shortages like gum. When you're a kid, you love to chew gum and all that. And we saw that beginning to happen. So then I left. Okay, I was, I had preview of what was to come, see, and then when my father came in 1966, I'm sorry, basically I found out through my sister because he didn't care to talk about what happened. I mean, he was so physically and mentally distraught. He didn't want to talk about it, okay? But she told me that in each of the businesses that he had, the militia came armed, okay? Like an FBI raid, okay? Very similar to that. And he says, who is the owner? Obviously, my father said it. You leave everything, you don't take anything with you, because this business now belongs to the state.
Wow.
In each one of the three businesses. And he also lost the farm. The region where I used to live in the middle of the country, okay, it was Las Villas. And the town that I used to live at, it was a very prosperous town. I mean, Cuba was really extremely prosperous country. Okay, as a matter of fact, I was reading, because I wanted to, just look up some things. And in 1954, Havana, per capita, had the most Cadillac of any country in the world.
I believe
It might not mean something, but it does when
Yeah.
you're thinking, 1954.
Yeah.
And from 1981, and I'm saying this for a reason because I want you to know what Cuba was. From 1881 to 1959, the Cuban peso was at par with the American dollar for all those years.
Wow. Yeah.
It was very prosperous. Unfortunately, the mafia was there. There were some unsavory people, characters, some bad actors that because it was so, so strong in the economy, Cuba used to probably distribute about a third of the sugar of the whole world.
Wow.
Sugar was just like the main staple of Cuban income, okay? And then cigars, of course. I think anybody that smokes
Cuban
a cigar,
cigars, yes.
Cuban cigar is very famous.
Yes.
Okay, so basically what it transpired that throughout the whole nation, okay, the government began to intervene. Okay, everything that private enterprises they were, okay, and my section where I lived at, it was very vibrant. We had, like close to us, we had Nestle's factory, Nestle's chocolate.
Yep.
Okay, we had 5 different distribution centers of sugar, because we had, in our area was very cattle. I mean, it was like the cattle in my area was amazing, as I'm sure in other parts of the country. And just like me, I know there was a lot of people in the country just like that, okay? So it slowly began everything belonging to the state. When Castro came in, he promised, and this is something that I need to put emphasis on, he promised equality for everybody. Does that sound familiar?
That
Yes, it
sounds very
does.
familiar.
But he never said that that equality was to make everybody dirt poor.
Right.
The only ones that live the high life are the government and people attached to the government. Okay? And if I might just interject, I read last year that they had seen Fidel's grandchildren, and they were living it up in Monaco, in men's yachts. They're living the life of Riley.
Believe it.
While, and like I said before, Pastor, right now, at this particular moment, almost 90% of the Cuban population are living in extreme poverty. I'm talking like for 3 to 4 hours, they have electricity. 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
Okay. Water is scarce. Food is more than scarce. The ones that are doing a little better are the people in the countryside, in the farms, because they can they can do their own. But people in cities, okay, I mean, I'm sure you have seen the revolts that have been going on.
Yeah.
But you know what the problem is with those revolts? The very first thing that Castro did was confiscate their guns. Everyone with a gun had to give it up
Yeah.
because of the revolution. Okay?
All right, so I just want to go back and reemphasize a couple points. First of all, your father worked for years building businesses, 3 successful businesses that he had. And the government literally came to his business and said, this is now ours. It no longer belongs to you.
Correct.
Nothing you can do about that. They just decide it belongs to the government and you're out.
Exactly.
That is astounding that a government could have that kind of authority
That kind
just
of
to
power.
step in and do that.
Exactly.
What does your father do after they just decide these are ours?
Well, he had sort of an insight, and he was able to send a little bit of money in American dollars to the U.S. Okay, my sister also, she was married to a gentleman that also was quite wealthy. So when she came in, she had about back in '66, she had about $20,000. Okay, that he had sent in her name in the U.S. So she used that, she built the house, etc. But the thing is, like, I don't think people understand what happens to a human being when everything you work so hard is taken away from you,
Absolutely.
like that, okay? And I see right now, okay, I see right now the beginnings, okay, of what is socialism. Well, actually, we do have socialism in here. But see, socialism is a precursor to communism.
Yes.
Okay.
And anybody that says that socialism is good, I have another story to tell, as I'm doing right here.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
You know, you want to come talk to me, I'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
So, Castro in 1960, he came, like I said, he came in with all this fanfare. He actually passed by my town, and he stood in the step of, it's like a big, it's okay. Look at the White House. Have a picture of the White House in your mind. Very similar to that with the huge columns, okay? It was like an association, a club, okay? It was called Club Progreso, the Club of Progress.
Right.
Okay? And he stood at the steps of that club, and he spoke to the people of my town. And this is something that I spoke to my cousin about, because I was asking him some question. I was too young when I left, and nobody spoke to me about any of that. And he said, he's older than me, he's about 80-something. And he says, Juan, when I heard what he was talking about, I go, this is going in a bad direction. See, because all the promises and all this equality for everybody, and what he was going to do to attain that equality, the way he was going to do it, he said, trouble is in the horizon. Okay? And this is something that I see, okay, from hearing all the different people, I mean, all these demonstrations that are going on, all the lack of authority in, like what happened in Minnesota in 2020, okay, they could do as they please. They did burn down the building. Why not? They're just a loving piece of, demonstration.
Okay.
No.
So the message then of communism in the early 60s in Cuba was equality. It
Right.
was let's step in here and bring it, and that appealed to the masses, I'm assuming.
Well, to some, because there were a lot of rich people in Cuba, a lot of rich people in Cuba. Okay, obviously they didn't want that, but see, the people that were not in that echelon, in that, because like I said before, you had the upper class, and then you had the lower class. They were suffering, but there was no restriction. Even though they were suffering, there was no real restriction, so they could get access to different things, okay, at that time. But basically, what he did is just everything, all persons' freedom, was taken away. And God help you if you spoke up against the regime. God help you.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but was Castro voted in by the people?
No, he was
Okay.
not voted.
How did he take power?
It was a coup.
Okay.
Okay. Before him was Fulgencio Batista. Okay, he was the president of Cuba. He was, from what I've been reading and hearing, he was a dictator to a certain extent. But the Cuban people had freedom. That doesn't make them any better. That doesn't make them any better because Cuban people had freedom. But he was a dictator. And if you spoke up, he would shoot you just as soon as look at you, unfortunately. But prosperity was available. See, and then when he came in, when Castro came in, okay, he just basically said, okay, we're going to move in a different direction, okay? Basically, he said, I'm going to be your next tyrant for the next 60 years. Not in those words,
Right.
but you understand.
Yes.
Okay, and that's basically what happened. See?
A lot of the history of how Castro came and all that, and I know from stories that my dad would like converse with his friends and here already when we were in the United States, is that he had what Cubans call labia. He had a good speech. He just could talk anybody into anything.
Wow.
And very colorful and very
Persuasive.
charismatic.
Yeah.
And this is what the people need, and I can deliver that. And if you're suffering under this regime and you are struggling with this, I will make everything equal, so it will be open to everybody. So
So our first message is equality. The second step is taking away guns. What else are you seeing in the transition in Cuba to Castro and communism? What else are you seeing happening in the U.S. that indicates we would be on that same path?
Well, number one, the speech that I heard about controlling prices.
Control.
Okay, when the government controls prices, independents don't have a voice. See, so the government, if you are let's say you're Elon Musk. Okay, let's say that you are Elon Musk.
I'll take that for a day.
Okay, so would I. And then the government would say, okay, Elon, you cannot charge this much amount for your cars because we feel that this is a too high price and there's a lot of little people that want to drive your cars, so you cannot charge that. They're going to take your right as a capitalist person, which is something that in Cuba it's obscene. That word is obscene, capitalist. Okay, that we're going to take control of what you do, what you say, and all you have to just listen to the news, okay, about what's been happening with the freedom of speech.
That's controlled.
Yeah.
That is censorship.
It's free for thee, but not free for me.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay,
I-
and that is basically how it all resulted. He built a network. He built a network of people that surrounded him. Okay, that would always be aware of what someone else is talking or someone else is doing in businesses, in anything. Okay, and through that network, he was able to contain anything that would be against him or his government. See, and sometimes people, stories that I've heard, would disappear,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
and you would
Sounds-
never find out what happened.
That happens today more than most Americans know.
People
Correct.
disappear.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's called government interference.
Ooh.
And we see that
We see a
now,
lot of that right
nowadays.
now.
Yep.
Okay, we see that government interference, okay, which is leading to, God help us all, to a socialism that, and I honestly think that there are too many patriots in America. Okay, I'm a Yeah, I am a citizen of the United States, and there's no. Ask my wife. I can't say enough how much I appreciate for them to open the doors back then and take us in, okay, and give us the ability to the American dream, for us to have the American dream, okay. But now what we're getting is just people that come in and it's just filling up the United States, but not with the same motive or the same reason that I had when I came here.
Yeah.
Right, you were grateful. I was just thinking of a few things that have been going on. One, we saw a lot of control and lockdowns through COVID. I mean, that's when we really got involved in government because they were here locking down everything. They arrested
Correct.
a pastor in Florida, Rodney Howard Brown,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they were threatening here in our county, in Martin County, to do the same. So we got, involved, but we saw a lot of lockdowns and government controlling at that time. Then we look at this election thing, because you said it was a coup. So they kind of came in and took over. We never really found out what happened in the last election. It's never been settled, and yet we saw all these people get arrested and many still sitting in prison from January 6th. So they're not willing to, we're not taking them to court for deceptive things they're doing, but they're doing it to us. Look at Trump's estate being raided when they weren't even there. I
That's
mean,
amazing.
it's not
That's
equal,
amazing.
and it feels kind of like a coup and a takeover. So,
Definitely is. I mean, the interference of the government right now is that I'm looking at it, and I've got a couple of friends of mine that we talk about this a lot. And one of my friends, he says, I hope to God that we can have a change. And I ask everybody, are we better off than we were 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Are we better off?
I think one of the things that I hear, and maybe you can speak into this, that really concerns me is this conversation that there is an elite wealthy group in this country that is keeping any kind of equity, is the word they're using now, that everybody has to have some kind of equal result without equal work. It's just that we should all have the same incomes regardless of the input and work we put in. So you have these people who build huge corporations that employ thousands and thousands and thousands of people, but now they're the bad guy because they have accumulated their own wealth, and supposedly everyone else is suppressed. And yet everyone else has the same opportunity to build that kind of wealth. They choose not to, and the government then ends up supplying them with funds not to capitalize.
look at the illegals coming through right now who are getting more than our own people who have fought in wars and fought in Vietnam. They're getting our own veterans. They're getting housing. We have, I'm not going to name them, but we have friends right now that just went on a cruise out of Seattle. And they said they stopped at a couple of stores there to pick up a couple of items. And people were just grabbing stuff out of the shelves and leaving. And they were like, there was nothing the store owners can do. This is like normal in some parts of the country right now.
They were saying that the people operating the counter at the store would just say to these people, don't come back. And they would come in and just clear the shelves and walk out. But the person working
This
in the
is
store
today.
said, we can't do anything. We just have to
We
allow
just have
it.
to allow it.
Right. I mean, when you have got a $950 limit, okay, to steal something,
Right.
you can get away with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So you could
Okay.
probably do that at every
Ni-
store every day.
Right. $950, come on, that's a lot of stuff that you can steal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And unfortunately, we see that happen in so many places.
Yes.
And thank you, Lord, that we live here in a state where Governor DeSantis, okay, he is for the people,
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, not for government,
Yes.
okay. And unfortunately, we see so much of that out there everywhere.
And Martin County's been pretty good at catching them.
Good.
When they come here, don't come to Martin County.
What would be, and I'd like to hear this from both of you, what would be your warning to the U.S., the things you're seeing happening and knowing where they head to, what would be your warnings to tell people to begin watching for this, don't fall for this, look for this, fight this, speak up against this? What kind of things would you tell us?
Well, number one is that we have to be informed because there's so many people that are not informed. And so many people will fall for any lies. They will eat it hook, line, and sinker, okay? And I hear that. I'm not the smartest guy in the world by no means of the imagination, but I still hear these things, okay? Promises which are totally empty, promises which was one thing one day and then the next thing it's something else. You know, I should have brought my flip-flop with me so I could have shown it to you. This constant flip-flopping back and forth.
Yes.
And a lot of the people, on the non-conservative people, all they want is to stay in power because power means money, okay? There is an enormous amount of money that is pushing this agenda, okay? And before I give it to her, I want to say there was about 6 months ago or last year, this girl from Arizona, she was
Carrie Lake.
Carrie Lake she was going up for senator, and she had a call from someone close to her. Did you hear about that?
No, I
I
did
think I
not.
did.
Go ahead.
Okay,
I did.
and she actually taped the call.
Yes.
And he was telling her, Carrie, there's a lot of people, there's some people with a lot of money that they don't want you to run for the Senate.
I do remember this.
You remember that?
I do.
Lots of money, okay? They don't want you to run for re-election. And this is where it all, you know,
Right.
the substance
Right.
of all what's going on is that the deep state, if I may say that, the deep state is in control of the United States right now. And what we have to do is vote right,
We
okay?
do.
We have to vote for the people that are conservative, that holds the values of people like such as yourself and us, you know, that we value our rights as Christians. Because another thing in Cuba, immediately the freedom of religion
See?
and the freedom of speech was totally abolished. The first thing they did,
First thing.
shut down. No freedom of religion, and God help you if you try to do that. You know, be outside, having a get together, Christian get together, even Catholic get together, whatever. That would be the end of you.
If I
Okay.
could say a couple things here. One, I think it's like you said, the church being activated, and you literally spoke on that this morning, resurrecting the church, resurrecting the body of Christ, to be vocal and to be in society who God has called us to be. It's so important right now. But also, another thing that we started doing 4 years ago is we got involved in local government, because you at least need to get involved in local. We have 3 people from our congregation that are on the school board. We've been involved in other elections. We promote and educate people on voting, so we must be informed. And there was one more I was thinking of. It'll come back to me. But yeah, we must be involved and start locally.
And one thing, if I'm just say, and one thing that I ask whoever's watching, okay, please,
Oh, I have,
please vote.
yes.
Go out and make a difference.
Yeah.
Okay? Don't use any excuse. Don't use the Bible, because I don't believe the Bible says don't vote. Okay? I don't anywhere that it says
It does not.
don't vote. Okay? And that's why I remember I asked
Yeah.
you about that. So I ask everybody, please vote, and vote in the right direction.
Yeah.
We
Right.
want our country, because this is my
Yes.
country. Okay?
Yes.
We want our country to be what it used to be years ago. Okay?
Right. We personally provide voter guides to help assist people. And on what's going to be on this ballot are 6 amendments. Now, this is what's so important too. It is foreign money, meaning money coming out of our state from groups like Planned Parenthood and with the marijuana drug companies, what's
right.
True
True Leaf.
True Leaf. paying millions of dollars from out of state to get these things on our Florida ballot, and people don't even know they're going to be on the ballot. So they're not informed. This is not okay that outside money is coming in to manipulate us.
Manipulate, exactly. When you asked the question, Pastor, the very first words that came into my mind and my heart was, the church needs to wake up.
Yes.
We need to wake up. And when my husband says that we need to be informed, there's a lot, I believe, that a lot of people that they may be struggling right now, right? So this all sounds so sweet to the ear. But if you really dig and if you take the time, which I think everybody needs to, you need to find out what's behind the sweet talk. Because from our experience, and I can't say from mine, but like from my parents and my family's experience, this is all a precursor, like my husband says, to what's going to be a bomb for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Right.
Communism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then they're going to say, oh my God, you know what? The time to say, oh my God, let me open my eyes, let me find out, is now. It's now.
Yeah.
It's going to be too late if things don't go the right way at the end of this year.
Right.
And it's going to be, I can compare, when you talked about the illegals coming in and all that, we have a lot of people we know that came in on a visa and whatever, and they stayed because they needed to stay, because their country, for Latin America or South America, was not safe, right? But they are hardworking people that pay taxes, because even though you're not legal and you may not have a social security number, but if there's certain forms and certain ways, they do pay taxes, okay, into this country, and they're doing their paperwork, and a lot of them have gotten it the right way.
They love America.
Exactly. They love America, and they love the opportunity that this country has given every single person that has stepped on its soil
Amen.
from the very beginning. Because every single one of us are immigrants in this country. The only natives were those. And the people that came in the 60s, I can say from Cuba, they built a lot of this state.
Yes, that's true.
Miami, where we are originally from, Miami was built by the Cuban community. Men and women that came in with a little bit of money, and they worked very, very hard. But they had the open door of freedom in order to be able to lift up and to be able to grow. And that's nowadays what's coming in, and I hate to say it, but it's even from Cuba. They think they deserve everything. Oh, but why is it that I'm not getting the food stamps? What? Seriously? Entitlement. And then a lot of I don't want to even get into this student loan forgiveness and stuff, because I'm sorry.
To start.
I'm sorry.
A lot of us put ourselves through school.
Exactly. And, there's people that have been paying student loans forever, and now all of a sudden, and it's coming out of our pockets.
Yep.
I ask the people to really open your eyes and dig a little deeper. Just dig a little deeper and get informed before you check off those little dots on the ballot.
Yes.
Because
There are things that it is almost uncomprehendable that we're not recognizing. You cannot just open your borders and let anybody who wants to walk in and say, oh, I recorded your
Criminals.
name, so everything's okay, we'll track it and deal with it later. You can't. You cannot do that. You cannot take an entire country of people who paid their way through school
Right.
and then say, now we're going to use your money of taxes to pay for somebody else's school. You cannot bring all this immigration in and just say, okay, we'll give you phones, we'll give you rent money, we'll give you down payments for your
Credit
houses,
cards,
when we don't even know who they are or why they're here. And yes, we have a heart, and yes, we want people who need to get out of communist countries to come here and to enjoy a capitalistic society. We were built on capitalism. But we hear things now like, we want to control your speech, there's hate speech, and we want to make sure you can't say certain
Yep.
things. We want to control your religion. We don't want God in our government. We don't want churches having any input or any authority. We're saying we need to start taking your guns away because you're using them wrong, because obviously guns kill people. Yeah. Confused by that. We now need to start controlling your prices. Government needs to take over certain entities, and it's like the country itself has become blind to these are all steps toward a socialistic economy, which is going to lead to a communistic economy. And so it is a mess that we're like walking into open-eyed, seeing it happen,
Yes.
but step by step,
Tolerating it.
not resisting and not
Tolerating
fighting
it.
back. And I think your comments are solid.
Yes.
It's the church. The church should be seeing this.
Yes.
The church should be understanding what
Yes.
these things are leading to. And the church should be standing up and vocally saying, we're not going there. We're not going to where the government decides what we can and can't do with our God.
Or say.
Where we can and can't, or what?
What we say.
Or what we say.
Yeah. About our
And
God.
so I thank the both of you for your willingness and for your courage to tell us as a nation what we're walking headlong into. And things from the meat shortages or food shortages all the way to the government just walking in and taking over a business and saying it's now mine, it's no longer yours. I think people are blind to the fact that that's our future if we continue on this path. And you're exactly correct in that the way to get off of this current path is one, exposure of the evil. We have to start talking about the evil. We have to help people recognize this is going in a wrong direction. And two, voting for good, voting for righteousness, voting for the system that has gotten us to here instead of deciding to change now that we become a wealthy nation, deciding to change into an equity position that says it doesn't matter if you contributed or not, we're going to give you the money of those people who did contribute. It makes no sense at all to me. And I thank both of you for making it real and helping us recognize where this leads to. And what your families both, yours in a rubber raft, getting out of a communist company, yours putting you on a plane at 11 years old by yourself to get you out. Those two messages right there should say enough to the American people for them to recognize how serious communism is for the people who lived it. They wanted to get out of it, and we're headed toward that direction if we don't change our path. Go ahead.
If I might just say the last word, one thing that bothers me so much is that some of these socialists are so hypocrites, such a hypocrite, because they talk about equality, and yet they're living in $2 million mansions.
Yep.
They have got money that very few people know the amount of money that they got. Okay, some of these socialists went to Cuba to woo-woo the regime, the Castro. I forgot whether he was still alive or not, but at least Raul Castro, okay, woo-woo them, you know. Obama was one of them, okay. So that's such a hypocrisy, okay, coming from these people that they want equality. So I want to make a suggestion, okay. All the people that want socialism, all the people that want communism, I would say round them up, put them in a big ship, and send them to Cuba. But, and there's a big but, okay, send them to Cuba, but not to leave as a socialite, to live 1 month as the regular Cubans do, experience that type of poverty, and then when they come back, they're going to tell us, oh yeah, we love socialism. And I'm going to tell them something else that I can't express here.
That would be the end of that.
Okay, our guests are Juan and Elena Garcia, who have lived communism and see it in the future of the United States if we don't wake up, if we don't start making some different decisions with different leadership. Thank you both for your
Thank you,
warnings.
Pastor.
Thank you both for your stories. Thank you both for letting us just sit down and talk to you about it today.
And
Thank
thank
you.
you for
Thank
letting
you.
us be part of your, part of this, what, you know.
We want everyone to hear your
Yes,
story. They
yes.
must hear.
And
They
hopefully
must
we were
know.
able to impart something,
Mm-hmm.
okay, into people that somebody will see it and they go, okay,
Let me think.
time to change.
I'm going to tell you what it imparted to me as maybe just a final statement here. What it imparted to me is the parents of both of these individuals lived in communism. And the parents of both of these individuals said it's not worth it. You have to get out of it at whatever cost, if that means getting in a rubber raft and going across the sea, or if that means putting your 11-year-old on a plane to get him out of the country. That should say enough to the American people to say this is not a direction we want to go.
Amen.
Juan and Elaine, thank you very much.
Thank you.
God
Thank
bless
you,
you.
Pastor.
Pastors.